Well, hello everyone. My name is Michalis Mathioulakis and I'm the Academic Director of the Greek Energy Forum. And I'd like to welcome you to what I believe, without being very subjective about it, one of the most interesting panels in today's sessions. And that's not only because we have really great people talking about it, but the issue is one of the most critical issues in public dialogue regarding energy and the future of energy in Europe and actually all over the world. So we're going to talk about the energy mix, about hydrocarbon exploration, and about finding a balanced path towards clean energy. And this is something that we need to figure out what is the best way to move forward. And hopefully, at the end of this panel, we'll have some good indications about how things are going this way. The balance between clean energy and energy security. Security is something that we hear more and more often the last couple of years. From an international relations perspective, securitization, when an issue is getting securitized, it means that it relates directly to national interest and national security. And under that perspective, it's all about trying to achieve freedom from outside influence. And this is really important to keep in mind when we're talking about what will be the energy mix of the future. Where will the balance be between the transition to clean energy and keeping our ability to be free from outside influence? To talk about this issue, we have a panel of the right people to talk about it. We have the Deputy Minister of Environment and Energy of the Hellenic Republic, Ms. Alexandra Sdoukou. We have Mr. Frank Fannon, the Managing Director of Fannon Global Advisors. We have Mrs. Katerina Sardi, the Managing Director and Country Manager of Energean in Greece. We have Mr. Tasos Vlassopoulos, the CEO of Hellenic UPSTREAM. We have Mr. Osama Mobarez, the Secretary General of the EMGF, the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. And we have Mrs. Rita Galli, the CEO of DESFA, the Hellenic Gas Transmission System Operator. Since we're a little bit tight with time, we're going to start. We're going to have like 4 or 5 minutes each for one question, and we'll see if we have enough time to follow up on a few things. Deputy Minister, I have a few questions for you that I believe everybody wants to hear the answers to. So, how are things going when it comes to Greece's hydrocarbon exploration program? Are there any? I've written them down because they're important. I need to remember them. Are there any developments that you can share with us? Will the Greek dream, for better or for worse, of having hydrocarbons production become a reality soon? And how does all that fit with our country's ambitions of moving towards a clean energy mix?
4 questions. If I had the replies, I would be a very happy minister, to be honest. Okay, hydrocarbons potential in Greece, and I know also that you have made a lot of academic papers for that, is an effort that started some years ago, and I feel that we are at the way of reaching at a point where finally we will know whether Greece has hydrocarbon potential or not. In 2000, however, 23, I think it was a very crucial year because a lot of things have happened in terms of completing all the necessary seismic surveys that, as you know, were necessary in order to develop further these activities. And actually, never again after post-war in Greece did we have so many 2D and 3D seismic surveys conducted. So what we have so far, we have an extensive geophysical survey that has been completed by Hellenic, by Energean, and also by Exxon. They are here, I think, to confirm that that was an important stage, and that was very important to have it completed in order to proceed to the next stage. Where we stand today, the companies need some time to assess and evaluate the data. I wish to believe that after this evaluation by the companies and the operators, they will be in a position to have their final investment decision by 2025. I hope this will come earlier. Why not? With a look of having the first drilling somewhere within 2026. So this is where we are today. Now,
how does that fit with, I mean, Greece and you have been pushing to the right direction towards a cleaner energy mix. How does the two fit?
First of all, Mr. Mathioulakis, if we have finally a domestic natural gas production, what do we want? Do we want to import natural gas, or do we want to exploit our own national reserves? And this is an answer that we own, this answer to the Greek population. That's why I think that the effort should be intensified in the coming years, and I wish to believe that even before 2030 we will have some good results. Now, the fact that at the same time Greece and all EU countries are accelerating their efforts towards green transition, towards achieving their climate goals, this doesn't mean that one is not aligned with the other activity. And this doesn't mean that we undermine the effort of moving faster towards our decarbonization plans. As you know, Greece, and we heard that from the previous panel, Greece has conducted a quite impressive performance during the past 4 years while fulfilling our national energy and climate plans. We have a very ambitious green agenda as we move forward by 2030, but at the same time, we have to be pragmatic. We need natural gas, and we can combine, I think, both at the same time. I think recently the same question was asked to President Biden, who nobody, I think, can criticize his ambition as well for the United States for climate goals. And I think he said exactly the same, that while they are spending historic investments today, moving forward with the energy transition, exploring and exploiting domestic oil and gas is critical in order to meet the intermediate necessities. And this is what exactly Greece is doing today. So we have a very close cooperation with the operators, with the companies. We try to facilitate whatever is necessary in terms of permitting procedures and help them getting to their final investment decisions. And of course, no way do we make the energy transition and all the policies and measures we have in our NECP to delay them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Talking about the United States, this is a great opportunity. Mr. Fannon, so far, the EU and the United States seem to be aligning in their energy-related strategic interests in Europe. So things were going really smoothly. Lately, we have seen some things that made some of us Europeans a little bit concerned. So we had the Biden proposal to hold some of the new investments for LNG, and that made us feel a little bit insecure about how things might go in Europe. Maybe that's not a problem, but still, maybe there is an issue there. So having moved from this total alignment to maybe the first issues there, and taking into consideration that the transition policies might lead, both in Europe and in the US, both international actors were actually trying to transition not only in terms of to what energy sources, but also to what energy suppliers. Do you think that this might lead somehow to interesting or different relationship with China?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, thanks for having me. It's great to be back in Greece, and I think it's, when I served in the former administration, was involved in U.S. supporting Greece and the Eastern Mediterranean development, and so it's great to be on stage with so many friends and leaders in this, and I want to particularly applaud the Greek administration, the Deputy Minister, for her leadership and really transitioning, having Greece become this energy gateway into Southern Europe. We mostly speak about energy as something of conflict, but here it's fostering a degree of cooperation in the region that's really unparalleled. So I think we have to celebrate the wins, and I think that is one. The pause. This pause is bizarre, and it's received tremendous amount of, frankly, condemnation by fellow Democrats of the Biden administration. The idea of, firstly, I believe that, the shale revolution could have only occurred in America, both because of the geology, but also because of the entrepreneurial spirit that exists and the risk-taking that's embedded into kind of the American business psyche. It wasn't the government that did it, it was the entrepreneur, the innovator, and the private sector. And so I think it's a mistake to have the government suggest that the market is demand is fully met. I think that's for the risk taker, the entrepreneur, to make the investment, deploy capital, build things, and either succeed or fail on their own merits. Secondly, there's a new paper that came out, the Wilson Center just published, I just saw it today. They looked at the EIA's methane tracking data and concluded that Russia's gas is 50% greater emitter than US LNG. Other places, Turkmenistan's 550% greater than US. So what is it what we're really seeking to do? So I think that this pause, I hope, will be short-lived. There's been indications that that will be the case. But the reason why it was because it was simply a political maneuver to appease a base constituency of the administration on the far left. And that is not a unique thing. Every president has talked about energy and wanting to do something about energy prices. But what is different here is the administration has also, for the first time, released oil from the strategic reserve for the purpose of price control. So that's different. I think what it illustrates, though, is this tension between energy security and the energy transition. They're fine ambitions, both of them. But what it illustrates is the real constraint on ambition is prices. That's the political reality. It's prices and reliability. And whether that's the yellow vest protests, the farmers with the tractor blockades, or the Biden administration, that is the binding constraint of the West. Going forward, my concern is that and I heard the earlier panel talked about the energy transition and lauding China, how they helped drive down the price of renewables. That is all true. But what are the externalities that are complicit in that cost savings? We don't have any price transparency or price discovery on this opaque market. Number one. Number two, are we establishing a new form of dependency? The US and Europe are pursuing the energy transition to address climate change. It's a virtuous, noble purpose. China's doing it for control. Last year, the world added 60 gigawatts of new coal-fired power. It was the most for decades that was added in a single year. China is responsible for more than 2/3 of that. So what is our goal? Who are we partnering with? We have to be very cautious of this. And I think we ought to do more on our own right to develop and avoid a new sense of dependency on our shared adversary.
Thank you, thank you. I believe we all agree that China and how it will influence internal developments is something that we'll be talking about for a long time ago. But I'm keeping also the issue of governmental intervention in the free markets. That's obviously something that even in the States can be an issue. Let's move on to Mrs. Katerina Sardi. So we've begun having this discussion about the role of hydrocarbons and how it can relate with the clean transition, basically after the crisis. And we started taking some steps really fast to see how we can combine these two things. Do you believe we're on the right track? Are we doing things correctly? And then furthermore, the European Union still says that we still need to move further away from the grab of Russia and whatever reliance we have still on Russian gas, and then the Mediterranean might be a solution. And your company is very active in the whole region. How do you see things going forward?
This is a very interesting question. And first of all, let me make it clear for people that were not aware about Energean. We are one of the 30 guys. So we are an oil and gas producer, but we are in a transition. We started with 100% oil in our portfolio. Now our portfolio is 80% gas. We are active in Greece, but also in East Med, Italy, Israel, Egypt, Croatia, and other countries. So we are in transition. We transited already from oil to gas. We are also using our knowledge of the subsurface to design the first CO2 storage facility in Greece and potentially expand this also to other regions where we are active. So if you're asking me if Europe is on the right track, the track is definitely right. We need to transit to a green economy, but where is our concern is the fact that maybe we're traveling in this direction too fast, and there seems that there's a lack of a feedback loop to stop and assess. And what I mean is most of the green policies, the Green Deal, Fit for 55, they were designed under the assumption of free Russian gas, cheap Russian gas, not free, but cheap Russian gas, and also under the assumption of global peace. What we have now is global turmoil, global friction, and the absence of cheap gas. So perhaps we need to stop a little bit and think and do some fine adjustments, and I will explain in a minute what do I mean. There's also a wide recognition that the green electrons that we want to put into our life, probably they do not travel that fast as we hope so. The penetration is not that fast. Grids are not being modernized, expanded, developed as fast. We're having a new market design now, dropping down to distribution. Why? Because photovoltaics connect to distribution. And everything does not seem to move as fast as we hoped. So the major problem is that gas is the greenest of the fossil fuels and is not the enemy. It's somebody that walks, it's a commodity that walks together with and supports the green efforts. And clearly, Professor Maniatis just walked out, but he mentioned it, that gas locally produced, as is originally produced, could be a good solution for security of supply, also for affordability, and this is the direction that the government is taking at this point in supporting upstream producers. So that's where we are, and yes, the East Med can offer a solution. We are active in East Med. We have zoned. We produce more than 60% of the Israeli, we meet more than 6% of the Israeli demand. In terms of numbers, this means about 8 BCM per year. If you want to compare it to European numbers, in March, Europe, in a warm March, Europe consumed 34 BCM. So we produce in Israel about 1/4 of what Europe produces it needs in a month. This means that there's, for the East Med to play a significant role, as we envisage, all of us envisage, there needs to be a very, very positive signal from Europe that gas is something that will walk in parallel to the transition path, because infrastructure investments, both upstream and also downstream pipelines, liquefaction plants, they're multi-billion-dollar investments that need security and a long-term planning. And there is no positive signal. So this is a concern, besides the geopolitics of the region, besides the fact that EastMed is a very energy-hungry region. We know about Egypt. They have, at this moment, demand exceeds very much supply. But things are going on, and probably I also have a recommendation for the East Gas initiative that they could also expand to support also CO2, the CCS supply chains. Why? Because we also need to preserve the European industry. And green products have a long way to go, and capture and storage could be a solution.
Thank you, thank you. I'm keeping the very important thing that we need a clear message that gas is not the enemy, and I think this would be a pivotal thing for the future. Mr. Vlassopoulos, it's pretty much the same question. Do you feel that things are going the correct way? Are we doing the proper steps in the European Union after the crisis to find the proper balance between exploring more hydrocarbons and maintaining a clear path for more green and clear energy?
Well, thank you very much. I think what is happening since in the 2022, there is more pragmatism coming into the equation about how we can transition to the new energies. In all energy transition scenarios, even in the most ambitious ones, there is a dire need for new exploration. Okay? So in order to secure a safe and affordable transition. We all want a transition, but it needs to be affordable and also secure. So this means that the current production is not enough to satisfy the demand that we have. Okay? So this is what constitutes the business case for going after a new, the development of exploration or the development of discoveries that exist. Do we do enough? Different companies, around the world, we have different strategies for different, different companies follow different strategies. US majors are doubling down on hydrocarbons. European ones are actually focused in developing a diversified portfolio. We ourselves are looking to focus our exploration activity on around 6 blocks, all of them offshore, working with international partners. In order for these things to be done in a pragmatic way, what we need is real support from the state and from the European Union in developing infrastructure in order to support the upstream operations. This can be done at a national or regional level. It has to be said. There can be a regional collaboration within the countries of the European Union or countries outside the European Union, and perhaps Egypt can be a country to support this. At the same time, we need, obviously, speedier permits for seismic or drilling operations. In all accounts, I believe that it has sunk in that exploration is needed, okay? And I think we can see that from where we are standing right now. We have performed our own 2D and 3D, and we are in the process of interpreting our own geophysical data so that we can get to the next level. I want also to add something else beyond upstream, but relevant, which is around the refineries. And it's part of the, the value chain. There must be a recognition that the refineries are also part of the industrial strategy of the European Union, and therefore they need to be decarbonized, and which means more funding is needed, through the innovation funds. We just, had a call this week, and perhaps carbon contracts for difference to support, CCUS. Without this, you cannot have a secure transition of the refineries, which is the only scalable technology to get us to the next level.
Thank you. The issue of the refineries is something that is really important all over Europe, and especially also for Greece. I'm keeping also the thing that you said that we have come to realize that exploration is important. I could put a question mark on that, whether we have realized that, but it's an important way to go. Mr. Mobarez, I understand that the EMGF is facilitating the utilization of the Eastern Mediterranean gas for the benefits of its members and to enhance energy security for Europe and generally in the region. Could you tell us what are your plans? How do you plan to support these efforts for more energy security in the region, for the European Union aspiration to move away from Russian gas, and what are your steps towards that?
Thank you very much. It's great to be back to Greece and Delphi, and it's a pleasure to be among this distinguished panel, among good friends and partners. And maybe to answer your question, I think the topic of this session is actually one of our objectives at the EMGF. How can we strike the right balance between energy security and energy transition? And I think a lot of people and a lot of governments have been thinking only about energy transition until the crisis of the Russia-Ukraine war, and then energy security all of a sudden came as one of the big objectives. I believe they are not enemies. We can definitely achieve both energy security and energy transition. And as in the last panel, people have been talking about the role of gas, how much gas is needed. And I think gas is needed for both energy security and also it is the cleanest fossil fuels. And not just that, but the technologies are there that can make gas even cleaner. And this is what we are trying to do. We're trying to develop the massive resources or the significant resources in the East Mediterranean, but taking into consideration how can we do this with an environment-friendly and climate-friendly manner. We already started working in this since our inception. We launched what we call the EMGF Decarbonization Initiative. We launched this in the COP27 that took place in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in 2020. And also, we launched the second phase in COP28 that took place in Dubai, and we had a session at the Greek pavilion there. What we are focusing on is we developed a marginal abatement cost curve. There are a lot of things that we can do right now that even does not need investment. Actually, they are saving money and also saving emissions. Our main objective is to turn the East Mediterranean into a low-carbon, low-cost gas supplier. We can do that through some quick wins, through methane abatement, energy efficiency, electrification of the facilities, and along the way we go to the more, let's say, expensive and that would need more investments like the CCS and CCUS. And back to the point about carbon storage and carbon usage, this is one of our plans. And maybe one of our ambition is to develop regional projects, taking advantage of the aquifers, depleted aquifers, mainly in Egypt right now, and how can we do this in collaboration with not just the government, but also the companies. And we're also discussing, we already discussed this with Hellenic Energy, and hopefully within the next few months we develop something that would be interesting. But to do that, and again, this is part of the initiative that we did, there are a few things that we need to do. There are different roles for the EMGF to play. That has to do with aggregation of technology, being a knowledge hub, carbon intensity certification, and also the role of the governments in terms of policies and regulations, which is very important. And this is the topic of the recent study that we just finished, harmonized outline framework for policies and regulations to encourage investments in decarbonization.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. Greece, I know it's a very proud member of the EMGF, and the cooperation has been very good. So this is very important to listen. Mrs. Galli, we all know that a TSO, a country's gas TSO, is the most important element in the whole system of a country. What we don't realize sometimes is that it's also crucial for the connections when it comes to gas to other countries and other regions. So what we have seen in the European Union, especially after the crisis, among other things that change, there's a change from, when it comes to gas, from pipelines to LNG. So we want to assure more LNG installations, more gas coming to the European Union through LNG, because we want to go away from Russian gas. Plus, we need the Mediterranean, and of course, that means besides pipelines, also LNG. What is your opinion about how things are going, the plans of the European Union? Because there's a little bit of ambiguity. We want more LNG installations. Maybe we don't want gas, but we want to help us for the transition. What's your take in all this, and how do you think things will proceed?
Well, as was said at the beginning by the minister, there are many questions. All of them is difficult, of course, to combine the complexity in one single solution. Anyhow, let me say that certainly there is an element that came out very, very clearly after the crisis and has been even more strengthened, that is we need interconnectivity and we need resilience. Resilience means that we need to have a redundancy of infrastructure and redundancy of sources so that and of alternatives when it comes to the energy mix, because this is what protects us from shocks coming from eventually one source missing or one energy corridor not being available. In this respect, I have to say that both the gas industry as a whole and, of course, the Greek gas industry had proved extremely resilient. Let's say we are just a couple of years down the road from the big gas shock, and we have, again, low prices, and we have a market which has balanced itself with a lot of new gas supplies coming on stream and a lot of project and development in the infrastructure space that have helped rebalance the overall market. Of course, LNG is playing a bigger role than in the past, because LNG means ability to receive gas from a multiplicity of sources, because it can be LNG coming from Egypt, from Qatar, from the United States, from Indonesia, from even Australia in theory. So, of course, having new import terminal means that we reduce the dependence from single sources, because, of course, we cannot think that we'll end up ever in a situation in which we live in isolation. We will always have energy trades, but what is important is to have diversified energy trades. Then coming to the conundrum, coming to the dilemma of how to make, let's say, to ensure that the investments are done to ensure the diversification of supply sources while achieving the energy transition, that of course requires, has been said many times today in the course of the panels, a very pragmatic approach. Let's say gas is one of the hydrocarbon that, let's say, will finally one day be substituted, but is today an inevitable partner to enable the energy transition. And there are other, so in a way we need to make sure that we prioritize the intervention in a way that are compatible with the overall resilience of the system. There are sectors in the economy where, let's say, there are much more polluting fuels. Let's say energy is not gas and electricity. Energy is a lot of oil. That is a huge, huge component of the energy mix in Europe. Energy is still coal in Europe, even if Greece has done a lot of progresses. But when we look at the Southeast Europe, there is a lot of lignite and a lot of coal that gas will help to replace. So let's say if we start having a technology-neutral approach and prioritizing the intervention in terms of, let's say, the power sector has achieved a tremendous result so far. Is now the most important to be further decarbonized? Probably not. There are many sectors which are today very critical to be decarbonized and for which nothing or very little has been done. So to really find the balance between, let's say, the role of gas in the mid-term and the help also that the new infrastructure playing in reducing the dependence from one single supply source, we need really to find a non-biased and neutral approach toward all the technologies that are going to contribute to the energy transition. And as Mr. Mobarez was saying, the gas industry is doing a lot to decarbonize itself, to introduce low-carbon technologies. And so, let's say, it would be a pity if these are not exploited, because they are developed by big groups, big companies with a lot of know-how, a lot of technology, and a lot to lose if they don't succeed. So that's why I think that we will strike a balance at the end.
Thank you very much. I'm keeping this last thing that you said about the need to be non-biased. in the way we approach the situation. I think this is really important. It seems like we have a minute to spare, and I'm sure I can squeeze another couple of minutes before we have to go. I had a lot of questions. I'm not going to do that. But I want to address the same thing to everybody. We are having this conversation after the crisis. This has been brought up. How to combine this, hydrocarbon exploration, and then moving towards clean energy. Do you all think this is a trend, this is a thing that lasts, or this is a trend that when we feel more secure, we're going to retreat back to not such a balanced approach? You feel optimistic or pessimistic about it? As briefly as possible. Minister?
Always optimistic, Mr. Mathioulakis, for what we're doing. In just a few seconds, I think I will repeat that the Greek government is very committed in pursuing our strategic goal in Greece, which is to make Greece as a basic transit gate of gas, of electricity and of hydrogen from MENA region to Europe. And you know what? During the decade of 2000 and 2010 to 2020, our focus in Greece was how to build the infrastructure, and our focus was natural gas. And thanks to that, today we are in a position of being proud that thanks to all this infrastructure, the Alexandroupolis FSRU, TAP and IGB, today we can safeguard European energy security. Now we shift our focus to electricity interconnections because we see that this is the way of helping Europe towards its goal, which is energy transition. And also, and this is why we build international cooperations with countries, and this is why we have today these emblematic projects for international interconnections. And at the same time, what we are doing is focusing on the future, on the decades to come, from 2030 onwards, 50 and 40. And this is why, from now, I think we should start working on hydrogen. So I think all in combination fit for our purpose.
So we start with optimism. Let's see how it will go down the line. Very briefly, please, a few things from everybody. Mr. Vlassopoulos.
Yes, I have to be optimistic, as Mrs. Sdoukou said. But in order to be able to achieve what we want to do, we all need to work in collaboration. Industry, government, contractors, technology providers, venture capitalists. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. I see where this is going. Everybody's going to be optimistic. Anybody cautious? Feel free to say it. Mrs. Sardi.
Okay. So I am concerned.
Okay.
I am concerned because, on one hand, we know that the EastMed can provide a solution. We know that technically it is possible. We have done it as a company to produce gas in a very, very short period of time, almost 3 years, also amidst COVID. But on the other hand, there is almost no single commercial bank in the EU at this stage that would actually support funding of an oil and gas project.
Thank you. Mr. Mobarez.
I think it is problematic if we think about energy security as a short-term objective and energy transition as a long-term objective. We need to think of both energy security and energy transition as short-term and long-term objectives. I think this is the only way that we can succeed.
Thank you. Mrs. Galli.
Well, I think that, first of all, there is no energy sustainability, energy transition without energy security. The Ukrainian crisis has proved it. When we went into a crisis of security, we ended up burning a lot of coal. And security is not only, importing gas from one or more countries. Security means also diversification of the energy mix and having multiple solutions and mitigate the risk. So I think that the lesson has been loud and clear, and I'm, reasonably optimistic that we will remember it for a long while, and so we will keep the security, meaning resilience also of the system, quite high in the agenda for many years to come.
Great, thank you. Mr. Fannon.
Yes, I am cautiously optimistic in the sense
very diplomatic.
Of, and not because of what government does, but because companies are deploying capital. So you'll see governments go through political swings. Obviously, the United States is emblematic of that. But what is the binding through line through all of that is capital, is the private sector getting after it, building things. And once that continues, I think that will remain. Now, my other caution, though, is to heed the lessons of Russia, Germany, and Nord Stream 2. Do not create a new dependence just because we think something is cheap. We have to be mindful of that because breaking up is very hard to do once we're dependent.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for a very interesting conversation. Following up, we have the panel with Mr. Thodoris Paragoulis. Thank you all for being part of this. And